What do you really do when the people who never lifted a finger show up expecting to walk away with everything you built alone, brick by brick, with your own two blistered hands? My mother walked onto my property on a Tuesday morning in October, looked at 7 years of my life standing in front of her in the shape of a restored barn and a blooming courtyard, and said, "It's time you stepped back and let your brother run things." I set my coffee down slowly. "You'll want to bring a lawyer next time," I said. "Mine already knows you're coming." The fog hadn't even burned off the hills yet. Dew was still clinging to the rosemary hedge along the front path, and somewhere, past the converted grain silo, one of my staff was hosing down the gravel lot before our first guests arrived. I had 2 tasting appointments before lunch and a 50-person anniversary party checking in Friday, and there she was, at the gate of Cedar Hollow, the place I built out of a condemned dairy farm with my own savings, my own blistered hands, and 6 years of my life, telling me it belonged to someone else now. She said it the way a hostess tells you your table's ready. Flat, certain, no room for pushback. I almost laughed in her face. "You never once wanted anything to do with this place," I told her. "Don't make this ugly, Nora," she said back, standing there in the cold morning air, watching the world I'd clawed into existence hum quietly behind. Something clicked into place that probably should have clicked years earlier. Some people don't envy what you've built. They just want it handed to them once it stops being a risk. To understand how we got to that gate, you have to go back further, because none of this started with my mother. It started with my father, a man who runs his family like a company. He's still trying to turn around. Gerald doesn't think of himself as unfair. That's what makes him dangerous. He's not cruel, not calculating in any obvious way. He genuinely believes every decision he's made was the right one. He just has a very narrow definition of who deserves the good outcomes, and I've never quite fit inside it. There are 2 of us. My brother Trent, 36, easy smile, the kind of guy who could sell you your own car back and have you thank him for it. And me, Nora, 32, the one who read building codes for fun and showed up to holidays with dirt under her nails, because I was usually coming from a job site. I trained as a civil engineer, then pivoted into hospitality construction, renovating old properties into functioning businesses. Solid work. Nobody ever put my name on an award for it. Trent worked in private equity in Chicago. Tailored suits, a corner office view, and a gift for making failing deals sound like genius long-term plays. When my grandmother passed 4 years ago, she left behind 18 acres outside of Traverse City, land my great-grandfather had cleared, by hand a century before. It moved through the estate to my father, and my father decided this was the moment to even things out between his kids. He called a dinner. He'd already had the paperwork drawn. Trent got a condo on the Chicago riverfront, floor-to-ceiling windows, a parking spot downtown worth more than most people's cars, appraised at just under $1.1 million. I got the farm. Calling it a fixer-upper would have been generous. The main barn's roof had partially collapsed under a wet snow 2 winters before nobody bothered fixing it. Raccoons had colonized the old creamery building. The well pump hadn't worked since the Clinton administration. 18 acres of half-wild, orchard and pasture choked with brush, fencing rusted into uselessness. My mother called it a wonderful opportunity to build character. I remember her tone exactly, like she was doing me a personal favor. My father called it fair because on paper the acreage balanced out the condo's price tag. He'd done the spreadsheet math. The math wasn't wrong. Everything underneath the math was. Trent glanced at photos of the property on someone's phone and said, "Honestly, that tracks for you, Nora." What he meant, and what everyone at that table understood without anyone saying it out loud, was that Trent needed the asset that photographed well. He needed the image. I could be trusted with the thing nobody wanted. I said thank you. Not because I agreed with any of it, but because I was already doing math of my own. None of what happened over the next 4 years makes for a tidy montage. It was unglamorous, grinding, deeply unphotogenic work. The first weekend, I drove up with a legal pad, a flashlight, and a moisture meter borrowed from a job site. I walked every square foot and wrote it all down. 16 pages by the time I sat on a rotted porch step with coffee gone cold, staring at a number that made it hard to breathe. A real renovation, done right, would run somewhere between $200,000 and $260,000. I had just under $28,000 saved. My employer let me consult on the side, mostly because my supervisor thought it'd make a good case study for the firm's portfolio. A sentiment easy to have when you're not the one sleeping under a leaking roof in February. But he wasn't entirely wrong to see potential in it. I applied for a small business loan through a regional credit union. The loan officer, a woman named Priya Anand, who'd spent 2 decades in agricultural and small business lending, looked at my business plan, my drawings, and my research on agritourism in the region for a long moment before asking if I planned to do the work myself. With contractors where I need them, I said. But yes, she approved $155,000. That was the moment it all stopped being theoretical. People imagine renovation as some kind of romantic discovery process. It isn't. It's hauling. It's tearing out water-damaged subfloor and carrying it to a dumpster 50 times a day. It's wearing a respirator for 6 straight hours scraping mold off drywall. It's finding out at midnight that your plumber ran the wrong gauge pipe, and the whole bathroom has to come back apart. I lived on an air mattress for over a year. I kept a bucket under the worst leak and emptied it religiously. I ate more instant noodles than I care to admit because the kitchen wasn't usable for the better part of a year. Friends visited twice, total in the first 18 months, standing in the mud with polite, confused expressions, saying encouraging things about a project they clearly couldn't picture finishing. Trent never came. My parents visited once for less than an hour. My mother said the place had good bones, and then waited by the car. My father looked at the exposed studs like they'd personally offended him and told me I was determined. Nobody offered money. Nobody offered a weekend of labor. They brought a casserole. I ate it in 3 sittings. What they gave me, without ever meaning to, was the only thing that mattered. Nobody was watching. Nobody expected anything, so nobody was there to get in the way. By month 14, the structural work was done. New roof, rebuilt plumbing, an updated electrical panel, a barn foundation that could hold weight again. By month 20, I was into finishes. Wide plank, white oak floors, lime-washed walls, oversized windows in the front rooms to pull in the pasture view. A kitchen built for local sourcing, deep sinks, open shelving, a restored antique range. I hauled out of an estate sale 2 counties over. The old barn was the real gamble. I'd originally planned to tear it down and reseed the footprint. Then one evening, standing inside the broken frame with light pouring through gaps in the roof like something out of a cathedral, I changed my mind. I rebuilt it as an event space. Instead, steel bones, original timber, a glass-paned loft where the hayloft used to be, room for about 100 guests, and a full prep kitchen tucked into the old milking parlor. I had it permitted as a commercial venue by month 24. The orchard took the longest. I brought in a horticulturist named Owen Ferris, who'd worked apple country for 3 decades to walk the property with me. Most of the trees were salvageable. One massive old pear tree near the center, he told me with real awe, was probably closer to 90 years old and still structurally sound. Whoever planted this knew exactly what they were doing, he said. We cleared it, pruned it, re-ran the irrigation, added a gravel walking path with solar lighting, planted lavender along the fence line, and set out 4 long harvest tables under the canopy for seasonal outdoor dinners run by a chef I poached from a restaurant that had closed during the pandemic. I named the place Cedar Hollow, after the massive cedar my great-grandfather had supposedly planted the year he married my great-grandmother. It was still standing at the edge of the property. I built a bench under it. When the website went live, built by a friend in exchange for 2 comped weekends, I had a wait list within a month, almost entirely word of mouth, with a regional travel write-up not long after. By month 30, I had 3 full-time employees and a rotating crew of contractors on call. We'd hosted a dozen weddings, 2 corporate retreats, and 1 unforgettable 90th birthday celebration. Occupancy was running close to 70%. Priya called that same month to say the credit union wanted to feature Cedar Hollow in their small business spotlight. That was the week before my mother showed up. She arrived unannounced on a Tuesday morning. I'd told her once, offhand at Thanksgiving, that she was welcome anytime, never expecting she'd take me up on it. I was out staking tomato cages when I heard tires on gravel. She got out of the car in a cream coat and stood at the entrance for a long moment, taking it all in. The restored farmhouse, the courtyard, the barn's glass loft catching the morning light, the hand-carved sign at the gate, Cedar Hollow, founder Nora Whitfield, private property, no unauthorized management access. I'd had that sign made 6 months earlier on my lawyer's advice, half thinking it was overly cautious. Her expression did something complicated as she read it. You've done a great deal, she said when I walked over. 4 years' worth, I said. She toured the property in near silence, which should have worried me immediately. My mother has opinions about everything. Napkin folds, font choices, the wrong shade of white. Silence from her isn't admiration. It's arithmetic. Over coffee in my kitchen, she asked almost casually, about revenue, about whether I had partners or outside investors. I answered honestly, which I still can't fully explain except as some leftover reflex. The belief that information shared with a parent stays safe with a parent. The conversation shifted so gradually I nearly missed it. Your father wants to revisit the arrangement, she said, the way someone mentions rearranging furniture. I set my mug down. What arrangement? The property split. Given everything you've built here, it's not really just your project anymore. It's become a family asset. It's my business, I said. I built it. You built it on family land that was given to me. She looked at me with the expression she gets when she's already decided something and is simply waiting for me to catch up. Trent's been struggling with the condo market. He could really use something stable like this. It took a second to land. You want me to hand my business to Trent? Not hand it over. Restructure. You'd stay involved, Trent would manage, and you'd draw a salary. A salary. From the business I financed, permitted, built board by board, and made profitable out of a wreck nobody in my family had bothered to look at in a decade. No, I said. She went cold. The specific cold she does so well. Not loud, not dramatic, just a temperature drop in the room. You have until the end of the week, she said, to work this out with your father. Otherwise, we may have to look at other options. What other options? There may be grounds to argue the transfer wasn't fully considered. I looked at her for a long moment. You should have brought a lawyer, I said. Mine's already on retainer. She left without finishing her coffee. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a glass of wine I barely touched and made 5 phone calls. The first was to my attorney, Marisol Reyes, who'd handled my LLC formation from day one. I told her everything, including the phrase other options. There was a pause on the line. The transfer deed from 4 years ago, she said. No conditions attached, no reversionary language, no family interest clause. None, I said. You wrote it. I know. I just wanted to hear you say it back to me. Another pause. They have nothing, Nora. If they try anything legally, we counter for harassment. But I want to be in the room when they come back. They're bringing Trent tomorrow. Good. I'll be there at 9. The second call went to my general manager, Diego Salcedo, who'd come from a boutique hotel group before joining. Cedar Hollow? I told him what was happening and what I needed. His presence and every operational document printed and organized. Contracts, bookings, payroll, vendor agreements. Already on it, he said. Want me to loop in the chef too? Not yet. Keep. Friday's anniversary event exactly on schedule. Guests don't need to feel any of this. The third call went to Priya at the credit union. I wanted it on record. If anyone besides you tries to touch the business account or the loan terms, she said, it doesn't move without your written signature. That's standard. But I'll come in person if you want a formal statement. I might take you up on that. I've done this job 20 years, Nora. I've watched families try a lot of things to a woman who built something real. Whatever you need. The last 2 calls were just to guests. Not for anything practical, just to hear the ordinary hum of the business. Still running. A couple confirming floral details for their wedding. A corporate client asking about AV setup. Grounding in its own way. By 11 that night, I lay staring at the ceiling of the room that used to have 3 inches of standing water in it every spring. I wasn't scared. That surprised me until I thought about why. I'd spent 4 years fixing things everyone assumed were unfixable. This was just one more ruin somebody had handed me, expecting me not to know what to do with it. Trent arrived the next morning in a spotless pickup truck he'd obviously never used for anything requiring actual mud. He sat in the cab for a moment, before getting out, and I watched through the kitchen window as he read the sign at the gate. His jaw tightened. My mother was already there, waiting off to the side. Together they walked toward the courtyard, where the lavender was in full bloom, the barn's glass loft catching the sun, and a couple was quietly finishing breakfast on the porch of one of the guest suites, completely unbothered, exactly where they wanted to be. Trent stopped walking. This is a lot bigger than I pictured. You never asked, I said. Dad said you were fixing the place up a little. It's a full retreat. 12 rooms, a wedding venue, an event barn, a working orchard, 3 dining programs. He looked at the sign again, then back at me. You've been building an actual business this whole time. What did you think I was doing? He didn't answer. My mother stepped in. Trent's here because your father wants this settled as a family. Then, he should have come himself, I said. I led them inside. The reception room, once the ruined dining room where I'd eaten soup off a hot plate for a year, was warm and finished now. Original stone hearth restored, long oak table, and a framed photo I kept deliberately on the wall of the farmhouse, exactly as it had looked 4 years earlier. Collapsed porch, black mold, a roof sagging like a broken spine. 3 people were already seated when we walked in. Marisol stood first. I'm Marisol Reyes. I represent Cedar Hollow LLC, and I've been Nora's attorney since its founding. Trent's eyes flicked to me, then back. LLC? Registered with the state 36 months ago? Marisol continued, pleasant and unhurried. Sole member, Nora Whitfield. The property was transferred to her outright, deed recorded with the county, 4 years ago. No family interest clause, no reversion, no shared ownership of any kind. Any attempt to pressure her into restructuring that ownership could reasonably be considered coercion under state law. I'd strongly advise against pursuing it. Diego went next, setting a binder on the table. Current bookings, payroll, contracts, vendor agreements. We're running about 70% occupancy with 30-plus events already on the calendar through next year. Priya, who'd driven 40 minutes that morning, introduced herself last. Any change to the loan or the business accounts requires Nora's signature exclusively. That's written into the lending agreement. The room went quiet. Trent sat down like a man who suddenly needed the chair rather than one claiming it. My mother looked at the folder she'd carried in, my father's proposed arrangement, and set it on the table without opening it. You planned all of this, she said, like planning itself was the offense. You have to, I said, if you want to protect something worth protecting. We're your family. I know, which is why I'm not filing a coercion complaint today. Trent was still staring at the photo on the wall. The collapsed porch, the mold, the broken window. You did all of that yourself? With contractors where I needed them? And a loan I'm still paying off. He was quiet for a long moment. I wouldn't have done it, he said finally. I would have sold it the first year. I didn't say anything back. It was the most honest thing he'd said to me in a long time, and I didn't want to make it harder for him to keep meaning it. They left within the hour. My mother didn't say goodbye, just walked to her car and drove off, gravel crunching under, the tires. Then it was just the morning again. The couple finishing breakfast, someone trimming the lavender border, the kitchen starting Friday's prep in the distance. Marisol squeezed my arm on her way out. Good bones, Nora. The building and otherwise. That evening, my father called. I picked up on the second ring, surprising myself. He sounded older than I remembered. Not in years, in the particular way people sound when some long-held version of themselves has quietly given out. I didn't know, he said. I know. I thought you'd end up with something small, manageable. You thought Trent needed the better thing, I said. Not an accusation, just true. The silence stretched. I thought I was being practical, he said finally. You were, I said. So was I. Your mother told me what happened today. I figured she would. I'm not angry with you, he said. Whatever I let happen, it's yours, Nora. I'm sorry we ever made you feel otherwise. I looked out at the cedar tree at the property line, nearly a century old now. Come visit, I said. I mean it. I will, he said. Come in spring. The orchard's something else in April. He came alone the following April without telling my mother. He spent the whole day, walked the orchard slowly, stood under the cedar for a long time without saying anything, sat in the barn for lunch and looked up at the glass loft in silence. Later, at the edge of the orchard, he stopped by one of the oldest trees. One Owen had said was borderline salvageable, one I'd spent 2 seasons nursing back myself. Your great-grandfather planted some of these, he said. Owen told me. He rested a hand on the bark, the way you touch something you recognize from an old memory. He would have loved this. I think so too. We stood there a while, not resolving anything in particular, just standing together on land that had been written off as the lesser inheritance and stubbornly brought back to life anyway. I gave you the lesser thing, he said eventually. Yes, I said. And I'm grateful for it. He looked at me, confused. The lesser thing had room in it, I said. The condo would have been beautiful. Finished. Done. I looked past him at the barn, the orchard, the house at the end of the path. This was broken. Broken things leave space for something new. He was quiet a long moment. I'm sorry I didn't see that sooner. You're seeing it now, I said. That's enough. My mother and I keep a careful distance these days. We see each other at holidays. We're civil. It's a relationship, just not the one it could have been. Trent sold the condo 2 years later after the market turned against him. He moved to Denver, started something smaller in property management. Steadier, my father says. I hope that's true. I mean that without any edge to it. Cedar Hollow has 22 employees now, full benefits included. We've hosted over 250 events. The orchard produces enough now that we bottle our own preserves and sell them out of a little farm shop that opened last year. A regional travel show filmed a segment here last fall. We're in it for about 3 minutes. The photograph still hangs in the reception room. The collapsed porch, the black mold, the roof sagging under years of neglect. Guests ask about it constantly. Why keep the before picture? Isn't it a little depressing? I always give them the same answer. It's not a before picture. It's a reminder of who actually did the work and who just showed up expecting to collect. Then I smile and I show them to their room.